July begins in 1941, Russian forces are on the defensive. The front line remains a tentative situation, with three cities representing the catalyst of the defense: Pskov, Smolensk, and Kiev. Neither one can be held in the long term, but each one must represent a challenging fight. Specifically, Kiev. I must make it a very difficult thing for the Germans to conquer. For the most part, German forces do play into my hand. Unfortunately, the one flank they do decide to hit is south of the town of Ternopil and also the town of Vinnytsia. It's in between my two fronts. It's a very smart move by him. It's completely clear terrain, so I have very little defensive positions to fall back on, and he hits it pretty hard. His second thrust goes straight for Kiev, which goes right into the heart of my army. So I do absorb that, at least for this week. And this is a bird's eye perspective of the situation that I'm facing before I begin to make my moves. In the Gamel area, I am relatively shocked to find out that the action I made last turn of isolating his Panzer Division and Mechanized Division has pretty much succeeded in halting his offensive there, giving me much needed time to bring more troops to bear. Unfortunately, in the Smolensk theater, I'm still finding that the area south of Veliki Luki is proving to be a hotspot of activity. Regardless of the heavy woods and the rough terrain, it's still proving to be difficult to defend. To the south of Smolensk comes what I am considering his secondary assault. The terrain is very beneficial to his army, but I don't believe he's sending the majority of his crack troops there. I think that's coming to the north in the wooded regions. So I have adjusted my defense to be relatively layered and strong here, and I'm hopeful that I'm making the right gambit. As you can see, the majority of his forces do seem to be spread out in what I'm calling the northern side of his front here. There is obviously an SS division moving towards the south. I'm hopeful that that's his main striking force there. If it is, I think I can make his life difficult, but if there's more there, if he has more panzer divisions and whatnot, then I'm gonna have to obviously abandon the city and progress towards the defense of Moscow. In the Pskov region, I'm not sure my strategy for cutting his troops off worked. What I do know is that obviously the town still remains in Russian control. So the bonus for the town is, I believe, turn 3. So I saved myself some victory points there. But I also have kind of limited myself on units that I have to defend the area. So it's going to be an interesting play out for the next few turns. I'm relatively comfortable across the other fronts where I'm probably going to reinforce this area at least to a priority level 1. If not, most or all of my reinforcements will go here. My air directives for the turn are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Same thing as last turn, but a lot of ground support missions. The only difference being I do have long-range air command starting to do some offensive interdiction strikes, and curious how they result. So as I run my air campaign, I'm noticing that my speed setting is still too slow. So for future turns, I'm going to bump it up to speed setting 1. But more importantly, what I am noticing as my missions are being played out is his lack of air defense. And what digging through the metric screen after this finishes running, I do see that he's moved 2,000 of his airplanes to his theater boxes. So I understand this is a method of mitigating supply usage so that your ground forces get the priority. But I think with the fact that I still have about 7,000 airplanes on map, I might be able to use this to my advantage. And as you can see, I only lost 41 aircraft, which from my other campaigns, like some of these where my opponents kept their 109s on the map, they completely shredded me. So as I actually progressed into the actions that I make on my turn, it's kind of quiet. I don't do much, if any, combat. Just basically withdraw in certain regions, set myself up to be in a position to hopefully counterattack next turn. I'm very happy with the way the state of affairs in the Gamel region. I have more units there than I ever have, which if I can use them right, hopefully will make Smolensk a much tougher target. In Peskov in the Leningrad region, he does leave his motorized division kind of strung out, so I kind of attack that. Not directly, but I do surround it with my new units. I spend most of my points building fortified defensive terrain. I'm not sure whether or not they're worth it. I'm hoping that they are, because they do cost 2 action points, and you can only have 50 of them on map. So I neglected them the previous 2 runs that I ran against human opponents. So that's something that I'm trying to use this time around. I build 6 of them up here in the Leningrad region, and I built a few down in near Sevastopol in Crimea. But as you see, I'm mostly setting myself up for future turns. I still like it. I do like where I'm standing. Probably next turn, Odessa is going to start to become a key battleground. I'm not going to put too much inside of the city. I've learned my lesson there. But I still like the way Kiev's sitting. It's looking strong. So either way, I'm going to send the turn back to my opponent, and I'm going to see what the second week of July holds in store for me.